I guess we'll kick it off. Talk to you guys about first on LaMichael James, I guess, and just your thoughts on. I mean, he's probably going to be out this week against ASU. So your thoughts on what that means and how much it'll impact the Ducks going forward in that game.
Yeah, definitely a big loss. It was pretty scary moment at Autzen on Saturday when he went down. Second play of the fourth quarter, his 30th carry of the game already. The question we asked, or some people asked, was why are we still riding the horse? That late when the game's already secure. But LaMichael ends up with a dislocated elbow. We saw him post game was in extremely good spirits, which was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
Even more so than his teammates and coaches. Said he'll be back in Oregon uniform this year, which is great news for him and the team and Oregon fans in general. So that's a good note, but it's definitely going to be a little bit different for Arizona State this week. Going to see some roles change as far as DeAnthony, Trey Carson, Kenyon. So it'll be interesting. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, obviously a big loss, but LaMichael, obviously a great player. Everybody knows what he means to Oregon football in this town. And I don't mean to minimize the position, but he was a running back. For all of the great things that he did, for all of the versatility that he brought, Oregon has a pretty impressive stable of running backs, even without like C. Strunk and Dante Williams. Don't think they'll miss that much with Kenyon. He'll be the number one guy. It maybe affects them more in like what you were saying, Luke, in that Black Mamba won't be able to play, in that slot receiver position where he was so successful against Cal. And Trey Carson, who's maybe a bit more untested, unproven, will have to take more of the load. So will those guys respond, I think, is the biggest question. So in that sense, yeah, he'll be missed a lot.
So do you guys think then that the strategy will be to throw DeAnthony in more as a running back and not playing as a receiver so much, or do you think that, like I was thinking, maybe they might just put Trey Carson in to spell Kenyon and keep DeAnthony because he's been so effective as a receiver? What do you think the strategy will be?
Yeah, you don't run DeAnthony in between the tackles. That's not what he's good at. And I think that the coaching staff, I'm sure they feel the same way. So I think you get a lot of Kenyon Barner and maybe some DeAnthony in there on the sweeps and wherever. But yeah, definitely a lot of Kenyon and some Trey Carson. I don't think DeAnthony will be the number 2 guy getting 10 to 15 carries a game.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And someone was asking, can Kenyon be the number 1 guy? And if you look at he has one start, and that was against New Mexico, and he went for 5 TDs in the first half. Given that was against New Mexico, very weak defense, but I think he can definitely he can run between the tackles. You can give him 20 plus carries a night. And I think he'll do well in that role. And going off what you said about DeAnthony on the sweeps and whatnot, I'd like to see maybe Josh Huff get a little bit bigger role this year or this coming week. He had 4 catches, made a great grab against Cal. So I'd like to see him off the end a little bit more, maybe try and take some of that pressure off. But we'll see. It's going to be a big week for those guys to step up.
Yeah, it does seem like they're slowly starting to get Josh Huff back in the mix since he's come back from injury. He had some big catches in last week's game, and I think something that'll probably help for Kenyon is that it was kind of lost in the shuffle with everything about LaMichael, but he also gained weight in the offseason, presumably to try to be a little bit more durable. And in the little bit of time we've seen him, he's looked just as fast. He had that 68-yard run against Cal. So I think, I think that he'll be fine stepping into that role, and I think he's probably pretty comfortable with it. So let's move on to just the game itself. Some of the numbers Arizona State has racked up so far, pretty impressive. They're number 1 in the Pac-12 in sacks, the 17. That's just under 3 per game. They're second in scoring defense, allowing 19.5 points a game, and first in interceptions, first in turnover margin at +8. So all of those things, with LaMichael being out, I think sounds like this is going to be a pretty challenging game. But how do you guys see the matchup in general?
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a good one, and it's going to be a test for sure. It was going to be a test with LaMichael, and now even without him, it'll be even more so. But Arizona State has not played particularly well against Oregon in the last, I think, 2004 is the last time they beat us. It was 28-13, but since then, games haven't been even really particularly close. Last year was. I know that was the first Pac-10 game for them. That was a big one down in the desert. Ended up coming away with an 11-point victory. So I'm excited. It's going to be an interesting one. Look for Brock Osweiler to have a big game. He had a big weekend. I think he was trying to see his numbers. I know he went for, I think, his third career 300-yard passing game. So he's coming in slinging, and it'll be a shootout, I think.
Yeah, and Andy, you were talking a little earlier before the show about injuries.
Yeah. It's kind of unbelievable. It's getting to a point where it's comical. Just every week, I mean, before this game, their Arizona State's last game against Utah, their starting left tackle goes out, and starting wide receiver, backup running back, Junior Onyeli, a defensive end who was a beast last year as a redshirt freshman, out. Their backup quarterback, Stephen Threet, had to retire because of concussions. I mean, in the secondary, Omar Bolden, who was an All Pac-10 pick last year, out. Will linebacker Brandon McGee out with an torn Achilles tendon, and he's behind Vontaze Burfict, one of their better linebackers. James Brooks, a 2-year starter defensive end, left the team after spring practice, and so the list goes on and on and on. As you said, Osweiler is a stud. He's 6'8", athletic, had a basketball scholarship to go to Gonzaga. Really an impressive guy who will probably play in the NFL one day, but I'm not sure there's enough there. And they're 5-1. They have an impressive record, but haven't played that many people. They lost to Illinois, who in my opinion is grossly overrated and not anywhere close to a top 25 team. So I do suspect, I think what they were saying, the spread's 14 or 15. 15. I think Oregon should be able to manage this and win pretty easily.
So speaking of the spread, I guess we should just make our picks now. Maybe start with you, Lucas. What do you think?
Well, looking, I just pulled up all the last 5 years of scores, and it seems like almost all of them been 40 to 20 games right in that area. So I think I predicted 45-21 last week for Cal.
Yeah.
So I think Oregon's gonna put up a few. I'm gonna say they'll put up more points this week without LaMichael, and I'll go 52-14 Oregon.
All right, Andy.
45-17 Oregon.
All right, I will go 48-12.
Oh, 12, I like it.
Yeah, making up another random score, but
So we were totally ignoring the spread.
Right on.
All right, well, I guess that'll about wrap up our
See you
show.
next week.
Yeah, see you guys next week.
Have a great week, Eugene.